With Pixar's Lightyear officially released, it's made us ask a lot of questions about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Buzz Lightyear. What do we know about his past? How long has he been around? And who exactly is he? Now, Buzz has been a childhood classic character since 1995, and we've learned a lot about him over the years. However, we want to know his whole story. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is the complete timeline of Buzz Lightyear. One major caveat, major spoilers for Lightyear ahead, as well as the rest of the Toy Story franchise. Secondly, we will be referring to events from Toy Story, Lightyear, and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. And it's worth mentioning that it's uncertain if a few things are considered canon. Also, as we'll point out, we are dealing with a fictional universe inside a fictional universe. Very meta, which creates multiple timelines, which we'll get to. With all that said, our timeline begins with the Toy Story timeline, which we will pause shortly to get into our Lightyear timeline. The astronauts went up, 1957 to 1969. On October 4th, 1957, the Russian space probe Sputnik 1 was launched into space. This was the impetus that caused the show Woody's Roundup to be cancelled and the toys in that line to not be produced anymore, cementing space travel as the new in thing to be copied and therefore toys to be made of.
Children only wanted to play with space toys.
Starting in 1958, Project Mercury was created, with the hopes of launching people into space. This of course sowed the seeds for astronauts as well as the final nail in the coffin for Woody's Roundup. As the space race continued, Project Mercury ended in 1963 and its successor Project Gemini started in 1961, although it only lasted until 1966. The big one most people know, and the one that led to the first man on the moon, the Apollo program, also started in 1961. On July 20th, 1969, America landed the first man on the moon with the Apollo 11 mission. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped out onto the moon with millions of people watching. Buzz Lightyear, of course, was named after Buzz Aldrin. Lightyear movie and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command creation, summer 1995. While we don't have official dates, we do know a few different things about the events that lead to the creation and purchase of Buzz Lightyear. According to the film itself, in 1995, likely summer, the film Lightyear was created and released. This film was the impetus that led to the creation of the Buzz Lightyear toys, which eventually gets spun off into an animated movie called Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Now, multiple sources have stated that the animated movie is supposedly what caused Andy to want a Buzz Lightyear action figure, while other sources state the new film Lightyear was the reason. Whatever the reason, we can assume that this is around the time when the company decided to make Buzz Lightyear figures. We also know that the Buzz Lightyear figure we follow throughout most of the Toy Story franchise is actually based on the Star Command animated film. This is because in the comic book, Toy Story number 0, Booster, another character from the cartoon show, is shown to have an action figure like Buzz. Although it is worth mentioning at the end of the Lightyear film, Buzz and company get outfits highly similar to the toy version. We also know that despite his crew being different in the film and the cartoon, Buzz's mission log being dated 4072 in Toy Story implies that he comes from the Lightyear timeline. This is because at the end of Lightyear, Buzz's final mission log is dated as 4071. Despite how freaky that makes the rest of this timeline. The only other thing we know about Buzz's creation is that on his wrist communicator are the words "Made in Taiwan," showing that at least this Buzz was created in Taiwan. It is also heavily implied that Buzz was bought by Andy's mom at Elle's Toy Barn, as that is where we see the Buzz toys in Toy Story 2 and what the commercial is for in the first film. Now, before we get deeper into Toy Buzz's timeline, let's dig into what we call the meta timeline. This is where our fictional Buzz resides. The meta timeline. Now, keep in mind, this may get a little wonky, as we are merging the meta Lightyear movie world with the meta Buzz Lightyear of Star Command world, which are fictional pieces within Toy Story. What is canonical and what isn't might get a little murky. Natron conquers the galaxy, pre-Galactic Alliance, thousands of years ago. While not much is known about Natron or his time as a ruler, according to the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, Natron was an alien conqueror who ruled the galaxy with an iron fist long before the Galactic Alliance and Star Command was formed. While not much is known about his time as a ruler, it's likely he was a massive despot who decimated any threats to his rule. The Protector overthrows Natron, pre-Galactic Alliance, thousands of years ago. Although the time is unknown, a heroic figure known as the Protector arrives in the galaxy. Using his immense power, he somehow manages to overthrow Natron and entomb him in his own planet, putting an end to his reign. Due to Natron not being mentioned elsewhere, it is likely these events happened long before the events of the rest of the Toy Story franchise. Valkyrans roam the galaxy, unknown but pre-Galactic Alliance, likely post-2000s. Another piece of info coming from Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the mighty warrior race known as the Valkyrians were said to be very prominent prior to the creation of Star Command and the Galactic Alliance. While the exact location in the timeline is unknown, it's likely around this time because it would have to be after Natron's demise but prior to the creation of the aforementioned alliances. Formation of Star Command and the Galactic Alliance, unknown but pre-3900. While we don't know when the Galactic Alliance was formed or Star Command was created, we know it falls here in the timeline, because it obviously takes place prior to Lightyear but after the previously mentioned Valkyrians roamed the galaxy. Assumedly formed to help protect the galaxy from massive threats, this alliance is the foundation for the Space Rangers that we have come to know and love. Birth of Buzz Lightyear, unknown but pre-3900. Not much is known about Buzz Lightyear's birth or birth planet, but according to Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, his home planet is called Morph. While this may be the case, Buzz is said to have grown up on the capital planet and not his home planet of Morph. It is implied in Lightyear he may be from Earth, but there is no direct confirmation of this in the film to our knowledge. Commander Nebula, unknown but pre-3900. It is said that Commander Nebula has been leading Star Command for at least 20 years, and has been the commander since Buzz was training to be a cadet. So it is likely around this part of the timeline he joins Star Command and starts raising the ranks here. Buzz Lightyear Cadet, unknown but pre-3900. While not much is known about Lightyear's time as a cadet, he obviously had to start somewhere, which we are labeling as here in the timeline. In the film Lightyear, it was revealed that he was not very good as a cadet, missing the entire target when he was in training. He was going to give up and believed to not be worthy of the Space Rangers, but Alicia Hawthorne saw potential in him, and this led to him being confident enough to become a true Space Ranger. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger, unknown but pre-3900. It's assumed that the next spot in the timeline is when Buzz becomes an actual fully fledged Space Ranger alongside Hawthorne. It's unknown what his missions were or how long he was in the Space Rangers prior to the events of Lightyear, but we assume it was long enough to become quite popular and quite skilled. The creation of the Turnip, unknown but pre-3900. It's unknown how long prior to the events of Lightyear that the spaceship they are on is created, but Buzz was a Space Ranger at the time and he made his opinions very clear. He refers to this spacecraft as the Turnip due to its resemblance to a root vegetable. It's likely that not long after the craft was finished, the crew was sent into space on their mission. Diverting course, stardate 3900. Buzz Lightyear is amongst the Space Rangers who are woken up when an uninhabited planet is found. Alongside his commanding officer and friend Alicia Hawthorne and the rookie Feathering Hampstead, they divert their course from the original so that they can land on this new planet dubbed Takana Prime. They start doing their tests on the planet to see if the planet is able to be a new home for the crew. Initially, the tests show promise, but they are soon attacked by both the local flora and fauna, leading to them being marooned on this planet. Being marooned. Stardate 3901. After being marooned and waking up the science crew, it's confirmed that after a time skip, they have been marooned on the planet for a full year. The year is confirmed to be Stardate 3901. By this time, they have continued their experiments on trying to escape the planet. The planet had started to build a fortress that would exclude the plenty of bugs and plants that continue to attack them. They start testing their new ship, which would slingshot Buzz around the sun and back to the planet. The first test, Stardate 3901 to Stardate 3905. Buzz sets off on his mission, slingshotting himself around the sun. However, the fuel source proves to be unstable, causing him to nearly crash and veer off course. He ejects the fuel source and uses its explosion to launch himself through the rings and back onto Takana Prime. When he lands, he notices that Airman Diaz has a beard, and much to his surprise, it's revealed that due to time dilation, the mere moments he was off the planet was 4 years on Takana Prime. Upon landing in what we assume to be Stardate 3905, Buzz meets up with Alicia, who is now his superior. She tries to get him to abandon the mission, and at first it seems like Buzz is willing to agree with this. Buzz is then given his personal companion, Socks. Buzz tries his best to give up, but he has a nightmare that convinces him to continue trying. Buzz gives Socks the mission of figuring out the fuel problem, and how to make a version that will allow him to finish the mission correctly. It's also worth mentioning that during this 4-year span is when Alicia meets Kiko and the two get engaged. Specifically, it seems to be 3902 because Alicia mentions she met Kiko 3 years ago. Test montage. Stardates 3905 to 3968. Buzz then spends the next 63 years attempting to complete the mission, while Socks attempts to figure out the fuel problem. We see a multitude of tests attempted during this time, and it can be assumed each of these have the same 4-year time span. Although we get a confirmed number, so despite the amount of tests we see, we have to place the final mission ending in 3968. Buzz witnessed the life of everyone around him flash by, specifically that of Alicia. During this 63 years, we witness Alicia's pregnancy, the birth of her unnamed son, her time with Kiko, her son's graduation and subsequent marriage, and then her golden years. It's worth mentioning that Izzy is born during this time, and Mo Morrison is also likely born here. During this time, Socks is continuing his research, and he is the one who informs Buzz and the audience it's been over 63 years since the first test ended. Socks completes his research in what we assume to be 3968. Hawthorne's death, Stardate 3966. While exact dates are unknown, when Buzz comes back in what we are assuming to be 3968, Hawthorne mentions that Buzz will likely be back in a year or two, so we assume that this event takes place around 3966 or 3967. We see a video recording of Hawthorne in a hospital. She knows she won't be around when Buzz arrives. Now, we don't know exactly what ended up killing her, whether it be disease or just her body giving out, but one can assume it's old age. This death caused a lot of pain for Buzz, and the two give one last to infinity and beyond as the videotape ends. As the tape ends, Commander Burnside comes in and reveals that not only is he taking over as commander, but he is disbanding Buzz's program and investing in a gigantic laser shield instead. Lightyear on the run, Stardate 3968. Buzz arrives back in his room after learning about the program being disbanded, and before he can rest, Zap units come to decommission Socks. Buzz escapes with Socks, especially since he had finished his research on a completed version of the fuel cell. This leads to Buzz stealing another ship and slingshotting around the sun one last time. traveling into the future for the final time. Buzz comes back. Stardate 3990. Buzz arrives about 22 years later in what we assume to be the year 3990. He lands in a barren wasteland with a giant spaceship in the sky above. He is met by Izzy Hawthorne, the granddaughter of his friend and confidant Alicia. She informs him of the robots, what's happened since he disappeared, and introduces him to the other members of the team, Mo Morrison and Darby Steele, as well as the Derek drone. They bring Buzz into their plan, Operation Surprise Party. Buzz and co try their hardest to deal with Zurg and his drones, eventually leading to each of them getting their own Space Ranger suits and getting into a ship called the Armadillo, preparing to fight Zurg. When the Armadillo is shot down, they gather up the correct materials to repair it, although this ends up with Buzz being taken to Zurg's ship. In Zurg's timeline, Buzz was not welcomed back as a hero, instead he was accosted by Burnside, leading to him flying off once more, shooting himself centuries into the future instead of going down the path we see in the film. Beating Zurg. Stardate 3990. Buzz arrives on Zurg's ship only to find out the horrid truth. Emperor Zurg is actually Buzz Lightyear himself. Coming from centuries into the future, he wants to stop them from ever landing on the planet back in 3900. Although our Buzz stops him. Buzz uses Future Socks and his knowledge to start a self-destruct sequence, but Zurg continually tries to stop him. This leads to Zurg trying to kill his younger self and steal his crystal. But with the help of Izzy, Buzz manages to blow up the ship and start flying back down to the planet. However, Zurg arrives again, having survived the first explosion. Buzz defeats him with a second, larger explosion. He lands back on Takana Prime and ends up approached by Burnside to be a crew commander. Buzz Lightyear Crew Commander, Stardate 4071. This is the only other confirmed date we hear in Lightyear, and it messes up the rest of the timeline. At the very end of the film, when Mo, Darby, Izzy, and Buzz get their new toy-accurate outfits, Buzz says his captain's log is dated as 4071. Even if you shift the dates slightly with how the time dilation works, there is no way this could work with the dates we hear in the film. Even if you shift how long it's been since the defeat of Zurg, there is no way Darby survives what is 80 years in between our assumed date at the end of the film and the confirmed date from Buzz's own mouth. But because we know this is official, we have to place it here. Zurg becomes public enemy number 1. Unknown but post Lightyear. Due to what we know about Zurg as the release of Lightyear and its time-shifting shenanigans, Zurg couldn't have become Star Command's number 1 enemy until after his defeat in Lightyear. We know that he survives the blast that Buzz gave him because of his appearances in other media. So we know that it's around this point in the timeline Zurg becomes the biggest enemy of Star Command. Tangia and Mira Nova, unknown but post Lightyear. In one of the earliest episodes of Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the planet Tangia is the latest planet to become part of the Galactic Alliance. Much to the dismay of her father, Mira Nova, Princess of the planet Tangia becomes the first Tangian Space Ranger, becoming a fixture on Buzz's team. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, unknown but post Lightyear. The events of the cartoon Buzz Lightyear of Star Command take place sometime around here in the timeline. This is the series where we learn about Natron, Tangia, Commander Nebula, and other stuff we mentioned earlier on in the timeline. Buzz and co have a multitude of adventures, ranging from dealing with traitors like Warp Dark Matter to energy vampires like Nos 482. The whole time dealing with Emperor Zurg and his cronies as they protect the universe from Capital Planet to Roswell. We won't be going too far into the details of this series, simply because most of it is irrelevant to the timeline, and we've brought up all the main points in the storyline as of right now, especially since this is pretty much the end of the timeline as we know it. Emperor Zurg is born, centuries after Lightyear. According to Zurg himself, he launched himself centuries into the future after almost being caught by his commanding officer. This allowed him to come across the Zurg exosuit and his army of robots. He almost instantly started working on trying to travel into the past so that he could finish his mission. We know this has to be the end of the timeline as we know it because we don't know of anything past this. Okay, so let's get back to our Toy Story timeline. The Toy Story timeline continued. Purchase of Andy's Buzz, late 1995. Buzz Lightyear, the toy, was purchased by Andy's mom for Andy's birthday in an unknown year that we are assuming is 1995 because that is when the movie was released. We know part of the movie takes place in late November or December because by the end of the film, the family is celebrating Christmas. Although a montage does happen, which could mean the movie starts earlier. Buzz came out of his box believing himself to be the character he was based on, thinking himself a real Space Ranger.
I'm Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger, Universe Protection Unit.
Buzz impresses the other toys with his new features and interesting personality, leading to Woody growing jealous. This leads to Buzz witnessing Sid as he blows up toys and is knocked out of a window. Buzz fights with Woody and doesn't want to believe the truth that he is a toy. This leads to the two of them being picked up by Sid at Pizza Planet. It's at this point that Buzz and Woody are captured by Sid and were prepared for Sid's torturous surgical practices. Buzz and Woody are kept all night and encounter the mutant toys, which they are initially afraid of. Around this time is when Buzz starts to realize his laser isn't working and he has karate action he was unaware of. Upon seeing a commercial for his toy line on the TV that Sid's father is watching, he comes to the realization that he is indeed a child's plaything and goes through a brief existential crisis. Buzz is picked up by Sid's little sister Hannah, renaming him Ms. Nesbit, and borrows him for a tea party. Woody tries to coax Buzz out of the room, but Buzz now felt intensely depressed about being a toy, no longer wishing to leave.
Years of academy training wasted.
Woody tries to convince Buzz that he isn't insignificant, and eventually he manages to convince Buzz to help him stop Sid. Buzz then pulls Woody out of his own depressive funk when he thinks he'll never stand up to a cool toy like Buzz. The two then formulate a plan to scare Sid away from ever experimenting on toys again, which succeeds, the two heading to reunite with Andy in the climax of the film. Racing to catch up with the moving truck, the other toys help Buzz and Woody onto the truck so that Andy will have his favorite toys again. After an intense chase scene and the usage of a rocket taped to his back, the two manage to land in the hands of Andy again, going with him to his new house. This leads to Buzz and Woody becoming great friends and ending the first Toy Story film. Buzz Lightyear Attack on Zurg, approximately 1996. Like every majorly popular franchise in the 90s, the Lightyear film got a video game adaptation for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System known as Buzz Lightyear Attack on Zurg. We don't know exactly when this game was made, but we assume it was made to capitalize on how popular Lightyear was. It likely came out in the late 90s, probably 1996, as only 2 years passed in between Lightyear's release and when we see Rex and Ham playing it in Toy Story 2. We also see in a VHS extra for Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, all the toys from Toy Story putting a VHS tape of the movie into their VCR to watch. Toy Story 2, 1997. It's been confirmed that the events of Toy Story 2 take place merely 2 years after the original Toy Story, in the year 1997. Buzz is amongst the two toys who witness the yard sale and the kidnapping of Woody. Buzz leads the rest of the toys on their journey to save Woody from Al's toy barn. He is even the one who conceived of a potential plan to get the team across the street. He is a very serious leader who will do anything to get Woody back, leading them to Al's toy barn. Buzz then encounters Utility Belt Buzz, who is equipped with a new utility belt and no knowledge of his actual status as a toy. The Utility Belt Buzz overpowers Andy's Buzz and traps him in a box, single-handedly stealing the toy group afterwards. Buzz does manage to escape and tries to rescue the other toys, although this ends up letting free an action figure of Emperor Zurg. Buzz arrives to save the toys and tries to convince Woody to come back, although Woody seems like he doesn't want to. After a rousing speech and a powerful exchange of words, Woody changes his mind, coming back to his senses and subsequently the group of toys. Buzz and Co then have to save Woody from the prospector Stinky Pete, while new Buzz fights Emperor Zurg. By the end of the film, Buzz and company have to come back to Andy with their new friends Jessie and Bullseye, and Buzz seems to have a thing for Jessie. Toy Story 4 Flashback, 1998 or 1999. Near the beginning of Toy Story 4, a flashback to 9 years prior is put forward. And based on where Toy Story 4 takes place, it takes place in the years 1998 or 1999. During this time, Buzz is amongst the group that tries to help Woody save Bo Peep, although they are unsuccessful and Bo Peep is lost. At least until the events of the fourth film. Toy Story 3 Intro, late 90s to early 2000s. The intro to Toy Story 3 is set to pick up right after Toy Story 2, and is a scene in the imagination of Andy. This scene shows Buzz and Co. stopping the evil Mr. Potato Head with their wide array of abilities. We then see a montage that shows Andy's growth until we get to Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3, 2007. Set 10 years after the events of Toy Story 2 in the year 2007, Toy Story 3 shows us Andy all grown up. Andy ends up on his way to college and he needs to decide what to do with his toys, Buzz included, and initially they are set to be sent into the attic. A series of unfortunate events lead them to being given to Sunnyside Daycare. Not only do Buzz and Co end up meeting Lotso Huggenbear, but they are absolutely brutalized by the toddlers. Buzz is the first to realize the terror of the caterpillar room and the respect that comes in the butterfly room. He tries to confront Lotso about this, but ends up being reset to demo mode, where he goes back to his Space Ranger persona and ends up imprisoning his friends.
You're in the custody of the Galactic Alliance.
Although this doesn't last long, as he is then set to Spanish mode, where he is little more than a flirty and cartoony version of a Spanish speaker. This leads to them being loaded into a garbage truck by Lotso, and they are set to be destroyed. Buzz manages to get back to his normal self just in time to prepare for his potential demise in the incinerator, and with everyone preparing for their deaths, the little green men arrive to pull them to safety and make their way back to Andy for the last time. Andy then uses this opportunity to give the toys to Bonnie, starting them on their new journey, being Bonnie's toy, 2007 to 2009. No longer Andy's toy, Buzz is amongst those given over to Bonnie, and after being given over, plenty of things happen. Most of the Toy Story tunes take place during this time, alongside the Toy Story of Terror and the Toy Story The Time Forgot shorts. We won't be going into the details of these stories, but they are important to mention at the very least. In 2008, it's implied the events of Toy Story 4 take place as Bonnie is entering kindergarten after being in preschool in Toy Story 3. With Woody not feeling happy in his spot as Bonnie's toy, he tries to leave when Forky comes around. Buzz is amongst the toys trying to convince Woody to stay, but as they go on their road trip with Bonnie, Woody and Buzz get lost on the fairgrounds. While Woody takes to it, Buzz tries his hardest to help his friend while struggling with his inner voice. By the end of the film, Buzz sees his buddy off and is happy with their new arrangement, and happy to be with Jessie by the end. Worth mentioning, Buzz also appears 1 year later in Toy Story 4's post-credit scene when Karen Beverly appears for the first time. So that was a timeline within a timeline. Tell us, did you like Lightyear, or was Toy Story fine without all the meta backstory? Make sure you hit that notification bell and binge our other Toy Story and Lightyear videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.